Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Pause with Elizabeth Elenor, and I'm on my phone because Facebook, oh my gosh, Facebook is continuously driving me crazy at the moment, and I just keep going to what my desired end result is. What is it that I want to create instead? And it's not being confused with Facebook. That's what I want to create. So today we're talking about the feminine wound, because last week we talked about the masculine wound, right? And I'd love for you to say hi when you're watching so that I know that you're there. And if you're watching the replay, please put hashtag replay and we can come in and say hello to you afterwards. But let's talk about the feminine wound. So I'm just looking at my notes, because now this is not sex specific, right? So this is not just about women, it's about men too. Men have the feminine wound and women have the masculine wound. We all have wounds, right? And this one's a really interesting one, feminine wounding, because it's all about rejection, abandonment, and suppression. And it's about our not claiming our power, our intuitive nature, our self-love, right? And it goes all the way back to being a child, as it always does, right? And all the little nuances that happen as we're growing up that give us the indication that we're not good enough, or that we're not worthy of love, or those little things like don't be too big for your boots, right? These little tiny sayings that happen that cause us to feel like we are broken in some way and that we have to behave a certain way to get a certain thing, right? So we have to be, demure. We have to be a people pleaser. We have to be gentle, shove yours in there. What is it that you were told as a child that made you behave a certain way so that you felt loved, right? So that you felt like it was okay to be yourself, right? Because ourselves changes as we go along. So let's break this down. And receiving love, expressing your emotions, or feeling worthy of being seen. Like, holy crap, is that a big one for women, right? I work with a lot of women that are starting out businesses. I work with them as clients, but I also am in different business trainings myself. And that's such a big one for us, with this social media being like worldwide, and everyone, airing their dirty laundry on social media, and everyone freaking out about actually being on the camera, being seen, being, like no makeup, looking like a dag, all of those things, right? Those things get in the way of our own self-expression. And so these days, and I'm sure it was back then too, but we are just so exposed to any sort of ridicule. People think that it's okay to, bag other people out on social media, to ridicule the way they look, all of those things. Now, that doesn't happen on my platforms. I don't give that energy off. I've had one woman that was in there and was like, throwing out comments and stuff, but more as a way of trying to call me out. And she wasn't able to, because I speak my truth and I'm very authentic. So there was nothing to hide, and she couldn't find any bits. But she kept on trying. And so there was this point that I went, you know what? I'm not here to have a fight with you, and I'm over it. So I just, blocked her, which is what we can do, right? So it's all about those little things. Now, I want to ask you, just to go all the way back, do you still have, let's start in the current reality. Do you still have an issue with someone complimenting you? Have a think about that. Just take a moment to pause. When someone compliments you about the way you dress or a new hairdo or your smile, right? Do you find it really challenging? So here's a bit of a story for you, because I had blonde hair as a kid, and this smile, right? This smile, like my teeth were white. My smile's big, right? Now I'm 53 now. It's not the same. But when I was a little kid, people noticed me. My hair was blonde, I shone brightly, and I had this big smile. And I remember being at school, and I was shy, right? So I grew up, I was, the third child, the only daughter. There was 7 years between me and my brothers. There was a stillborn in between, so there was a lot of trauma in the family before I was even born. I was this golden child because special. I was special. It was so hard being special, right? Because special meant that I wasn't allowed to do anything because mum was scared that I would hurt myself, or, she had a lot of fear in her. And so she held me back and suppressed me in a lot of things. So I was a shy kid, didn't know how to function, but I was bubbly before I went to school. I was bubbly and excited and curious and adventurous, and she just stripped all of that out because it was too much for her. So fast forward, and I'm at school in high school, and I'm shy and all of those things. And I remember this time when everyone was laughing. There was a new teacher. It was a teacher that had been in the school for a while, and all the girls loved him, right? Because I think he would have been maybe late 30s, and he was a surfer, right? So his hair was, this is in the 80s, right? So his hair was a bit long, and he was pretty good looking now that I think about it, right? But at the time I was just like, I was nowhere near any of that sort of stuff. But the girls thought he was amazing, and he was looking after our class for a certain period of time because our teacher was sick or away or whatever. And he made some joke in the classroom, and we all laughed, right? So I laughed as well. So he's looking around the room and laughing, and he caught my eye as I laughed. And he turns around and he goes, in front of everyone, he goes, "Oh my gosh, Elizabeth, you've got the most amazing smile." Well, can you imagine someone that's shy? Like, I was not allowed to be vibrant as a kid. That scared, I could have just been swallowed up whole in the room, right? I couldn't look at him the whole time. I think he had us as a class for about a month. It terrified me that he paid attention to me. So just think about the times that you've had compliments or someone's noticed you. How have you interacted with that? How do you behave? Do you react? Do you respond? It took me a long time, and I remember it was my first partner. His mother was a feminist and very strong, and she was the first strong woman that I met in my life. And she really hit me hard. Like, she was hard to be around, but she was the one that helped me with all of this. And she was the one that said, when someone compliments you, it's okay just to say thank you. And it was a big wake-up call for me. She said, every time someone compliments you with something, you give an excuse as to why. Like, "Oh, your hair looks good," and I'll go, "Oh yeah, I just brushed it," or "I just went to the hairdresser," or there's something that I say that I was saying instead of just receiving. Now, this is the feminine wounding of not being able to receive, right? So even that little tiny nuance of someone giving you a compliment, those things can be the challenge of receiving energy. And I know myself personally that I've heard women say over and over and over again, I'm good at giving, but I can't receive. I find it really hard to receive. Now, I don't know if anyone's giving me any comments here, but I can't see them on my screen, so I'll have to come and look afterwards, right? But we have suppressed feminine essence because we live in a society that doesn't value emotions, expression, receiving. You know, we've been taught as kids to give, you know, play with the next door neighbor, you know, you've got to share your toys. You know, you've got to, you know, go and give that lady a hug, you know, or go and give your grandpa a hug, or whatever it might be, right? It's all these giving. But when it comes to receiving, just as a society in general, there's a lot of cutting off. Receiving energy, receiving compliments, receiving love. There's this block of our feminine energy that is suppressed, and we as a society have just dumbed it down and distorted that expression, right? Even the distortion of, you know, our sexual nature. Like, I'm a very sensual person, right? There's a difference between sensuality and sexuality, but in society is not seen, right? Like, there's sexuality. We're giving our young girls this impression that they've got to have this sexual nature, right, to be seen. And I watch these young girls, like, man, give me a love heart if you see this as well. It's very sad, these young girls that I see in society that wear these little crop tops, you know, and mini skirts in friggin' middle of winter, right? You can see the goosebumps on their skin, freezing cold, or even not in winter, but sometimes when you see, well, often I see these young girls showing themselves and their skin, but also like somehow that this is the way you've got to behave, but also like gently closing themselves up in some way, or not looking at people straight in the eye, not feeling confident to be wearing those clothes, right? We're giving such mixed messages to our children of how to behave and how to be authentic and live in their own strength and confidence and in their own empowerment, right? So this is often comes from mother figure energy. So where did it actually come from? Often it's like struggling with self-worth or emotional unavailability when, like, with mothers, right? And that was exactly what happened with me. My mum was emotionally unavailable. She still is. She doesn't have any connection to her emotions whatsoever. And she does struggle with a self-worth issue. So, you know, growing up, there was no reference of what a strong, empowered, confident woman was, right? The first one that I met, as I said, was the first relationship I had, and that was the mother of my first partner. And she was very strong and bold, you know, like to excess, right? I didn't know that at the time, right? But we tend to shame intuition, emotions, and our sensuality. So we're suppressing all of that, that receiving energy, and then we can't express. So the energy that comes into us to receive gets blocked to not be able to, you know, pull it back, like to allow it to be reciprocal energy where we feel comfortable and safe and be able to trust people with our light, with our brightness, right? Because, I mean, everyone here has had some form of, abuse, whether it's emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, all of those things that we've had encounters with in some form or another, even little tiny things, right? Being rejected by the masculine can also wound the feminine. So there are an overactive overactive feminine wound, right? That's the overgiver and being insecure. So this is the people pleaser and self-sacrificing. Now, this is, as I said before, you know, men can have the wounded feminine as well, right? So people pleasing can go both ways. We've all had our moments, and, you know, give me a thumbs up or a love heart, or put a yes into the comments if you feel like you've had, you know, I asked in the group before, are you a recovering people pleaser? Because I don't believe that we ever completely recover from it. I was doing, we've just finished Spellbinding Love Life, which is a 7-day event that I had on here. And we were talking about values, and I was showing my values because I've got them up on my wall over there. And I look at them every so often just to, you know, am I still in, you know, checking in and making sure I'm according to what I want to live and how I want to behave. And one of my values is flexibility. Well, flexibility can have two sides of the coin, right? Because you can unconsciously be flexible because you're people pleasing, right? And it's those things that it's checking in on those bits, on those places where you might be, you know, self-sacrificing or people pleasing to keep the peace, because it's an unconscious program from our childhood that is much easier to do that than it is to stand up and say, no, that doesn't suit me, right? Or whatever it might be. So, so the overactive, wounded feminine, people pleaser and self-sacrificing, feeling unworthy of love or struggling with self-expression, right? This is throat chakra stuff. Emotional overwhelm, lack of boundaries, or fear of saying no. So this is when the feminine is extremely suppressed, right? But it's an overactive feminine. So if you find that you have trouble and struggle with boundaries, we have a 5-day course. It's a mini course called Boundaries of Love. And like, in my opinion, everyone needs to read it, watch it. It's little short videos. We had such great results when I did it live that we decided to do it in a recording so that everyone had access to it instantly and for a lifetime access. So if you're interested and want to find out more, just put boundaries and we can send you the link so you can go and jump into that. Underactive, wounded feminine, right? So this is disconnected and closed off. So the overactive is overgiving and insecurity. And then underactive is disconnected and closed off. So the underactive, wounded feminine is difficulty receiving love, help, or support. So this is, you know, like the martyr energy. The energy of, it's okay, I can do it by myself, right? I tend to have that a little bit. I get a little bit, you know, what do you call it? I can get a little bit shirty. Like, it's okay, I can work it out by myself, right? I get a little bit like that. And that's from childhood of, you know, not being, having to do everything by myself. And so receiving love was a big thing for me. When I first met Tim, I got to tell you, I found it really hard to receive his unconditional love because I'd never received it before. And actually, the last person that gave me that much love was my dad, and he died when I was 15. So it took a little while for me to pick up that I wasn't actually opening my heart completely to Tim. And the reason being was because if my thought process and my unconscious and my identity said, if I open my heart, I'm going to get hurt and get left behind again, right? So there was an abandonment issue. So feeling numb and disconnected or avoiding emotions is another underactive wounded feminine. So, you know, closed heart, which is my heart was not completely closed. But there was definitely another little latch in there that I hadn't realized. It was deep, deep, deep within. And there was this other little latch that hadn't, still had a lock and key on it. And yeah, it took me a little while to find it. I think we were together for about 3 months before I realized that it was there. So fear of being vulnerable. That was definitely me in that situation, struggling with intimacy. So vulnerability. I'm on a mission to change our narrative around vulnerability, because we have all been conditioned to believe that vulnerability is a weakness. That, you know, don't cry. Like all the things that we were told as kids, like stop crying, you know, like little, you know, only sissies cry, right? Like all those things. And it wasn't just said to boys, it was said to girls as well. All of those things have held up, like suppressed our emotions and stopped us from feeling vulnerable. What happened for me as I peeled off all of these layers, I've been doing this for 27 years, right? 27 years of spiritual development, waking up spiritually and recognizing that I'm a creator and I'm powerful and all of those things. What happened for me in that process was I realized that vulnerability was one of my strengths. And I want to change that narrative, that actually to be vulnerable means to be strong, because vulnerability, like even our, what is it, what is that part of the brain, you know, the survival part, right, the amygdala, I think it is, that is in survival mode, right? So it's a primitive part of our brain that is constantly in survival. So that part of our brain is ancient and still in that reptile energy of don't go outside the cave because there might be a lion that's going to eat you and devour you, right? Don't show you know, like your chest, you know, like don't expose your soft parts because you could be, you know, hit with a dagger or something like that. So we've got these armor, you know, we don't have the physical armor anymore, but we've been conditioned to have this armor on. Well, we don't have any lions outside our house anymore, and it's illegal to have a dagger, right? So being able to express our truth, being able to express our vulnerability, those things are a strength, right? Because we have shifted consciousness. We have moved into a different level of consciousness. We're not in survival mode anymore. And that needs to be addressed in our unconscious, because our unconscious doesn't know time and space. It is still programmed. All those old patterns of behavior are still in our unconscious. So as a matter of just re-identifying, re-acknowledging when they come up, allowing those things to come up so that we can see them and address them and shift them, right? Our identity is holding on to an untruth, right? So now it's moving into, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. I'm safe. I'm safe to express myself. So I want you to reflect on which of these patterns show up most in your life, right? So, couple of things. Embrace your emotions. Be okay and allow yourself to feel without any judgment. That's the big thing. Man, we were talking about this on Conscious Creator Circle this morning, my group, my 10K Conscious Creator group. We were talking about this because we've all got an identity, right? Let's get over the fact that we've all got an identity. We all feel broken. We all feel shame, guilt, judgment, all of those things. What we need to do is recognize that that means that we're just human. And now let's reorientate and move into the fact that we are also conscious creators, that we live beyond time and space, that we have way more capacity and creative energy than what our limited self thinks and feels, right? Our thoughts and feelings are not real, and we want to move into that higher place, that place where we can access our intuitive nature and move into the place of of paving the way through our life and into our destiny. We want to cultivate being open to love, right? So cultivate trust. Cultivate being able to receive, right? When someone gives you something, see if you can just say thank you, right? No justification, no excuses, nothing else. Just say thank you and feel the next layer, right? Brownie points if you can say thank you and then feel the energy of receiving and just allow it to be, right? Just receive that energy. Step 3, activate your sensuality and self-expression, right? So moving. We're beautiful creators, and we women have this flowing energy through us, right? So use movement, creativity, go and paint. Do something that's going to bring that energy out, right? Reclaim your voice. Allow yourself to say no, and just start with those little things first. The things that aren't as important. Just start saying no to things that are easier to say no to, right? Until you start getting used to the fact. Or saying yes to things, right? Saying, yes, I will come on that date. Or yes, I will go down the shop. Yes, I will buy that dress, right? As long as it's not, some sort of shopping spree, damaging, emotional thing, like you're trying to suppress something. But receiving energy from yourself as well as others. So, some reflection questions. Where in your life do you need to embrace your divine feminine energy? I want you to think about that today. And I also want you to consider that if you need some support with boundaries, then just put in here boundaries, and we'll send you the link to Boundaries of Love, which is our 5-day mini course. Eventually I'll do it live again, but it's, you get free instant access, and you also get a lifetime access. I think it's like $7, guys. The very first thing when it comes to conscious relationships is knowing your boundaries. Like, that's the foundation. You've got to have you've got to feel comfortable being able to say yes, no, whatever expression it is, being able to hold that line, knowing what your boundaries are, right? Those things are really important, because when you know that, you've got a foundation to bring those conscious relationships in. It's all about self-awareness and self-expression. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you again next Tuesday. Mwah.